Today's podcast is about the stories we tell ourselves and whether these stories are helping us or hurting us. So, something that I work a lot on with the people I do coaching with is this idea that we live by internal stories. Internal stories about who we are, what we're capable of, and what's possible in general with our lives. And the stories that we tell ourselves oftentimes come from what we learned as kids. And it is so interesting and sad at times how we learned something when we were 10 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old. And we took that as a truth that stayed with us for our entire lives. I mean, it's powerful stuff. And by the way, if you're a parent, remember what you tell your kids can last with them for their entire lives. All right. So that's great in a positive way. And don't you dare do the negative. All right. The focus here being, I want to make sure that I look at my stories. All right. I'm going to take a look at if my stories are serving me or are holding me back. And I think that, again, I look at three main things. When I'm doing coaching with people, when I'm going through my leadership program, we look at your past stories, your present stories, and your future stories, right? Your past stories had the biggest impact in your narrative about yourself and about the world. And your past stories are gained from your parents, from teachers you had, from coaches if you were in sports. And when we were young, we were literally creating our identity, right? We were creating our sense of self. And if we had parents that were really advocates for us, the parenting books talk about how one of the best ways to parent is with what's called authoritative parenting. And authoritative parenting is where we have high expectations and high support. All right. High expectations and high support. I want to make sure that all of my kids know that I expect the world of them and from them, that they're made for greatness. And our job as people is to have an impact on the world. And if I can teach my kids, if I can help them to believe about themselves, that there's greatness inside of them, that they're beautiful, wonderful people, all right? And that we are here to serve others. I can help to create a story inside of them that allows them to hopefully have amazing, wonderful impacts on the world. And understand that that's a really good, positive story. But many people, unfortunately, were brought up in households where they were told, man, if your grades aren't good enough, you're never going to be successful. If you don't dress better, you're never going to have anyone like you. If you don't cut your hair, no one's going to like you or want to go out with you or anything like this. And there was all this negativity. And by the way, I will tell you that one of my kids has had longer hair and I'm like, dude, really? That's long hair, But what I won't do is I won't create shame. All right. I won't say, oh, because of this is your future. We have no idea. And how dare we as people, as parents, instill a belief in a person that is negative. All right. As leaders, you're not allowed to do that. As a leader, your job is to empower people, to transform people, to inspire people. And you do that through positivity, all right, not negativity. It's just like parenting, where you have high expectations and high support. And if you can do those two things well, as people are learning, growing, developing, their past story is one of belief, of trust, of confidence. They believe in themselves because you believed in them. So what's key is knowing that a person's personality, a person's perspective, a person's viewpoint is very significantly impacted by their past story. So as you're communicating with the person, as you're leading another person, just know that what you're dealing with right now is actually their entire life. Because the things that have happened to them in their life has affected how they see the world now, how they see you now, if they trust people like you now. Then what's great is that I work on people's present stories. And your present story is all about being accountable for your life. Your present story is all about, okay, so you had this stuff happen in your past, all right? You have this job, this marriage, these kids, whatever that is. So what are you going to do about it? Your present story is all about how you are going to take the tools that you were given and then create the world, the life that you have, all right, that you want to have in your life. And if you make sure that you recognize this is what I got, and I will learn and grow and build from here, that's how you create a great present story. And one of the keys with it, once again, is this idea of accountability. Is this idea of I'm not going to allow myself to be a poor me person. I'm not going to be a victim of my story. I'm going to be a hero in my story and of my story. I want to be a person who, I don't care what happened to me in my past. You're going to see me be successful, right? You're going to see me take what I have and to create greatness from it. And what's so neat is when you hear about people who really had rough lives and they did something amazing with it. That is the hero's journey, right? That is the hero's story. And I want to be a hero in my life, in my story. Now, there's always going to be hardships. There's always going to be tough times. That's part of the story. What's so cool is that the more that we overcome the hardships, the more that we overcome the difficult times, that becomes part of our story. And what's so great is the hero in the hero's journey has to overcome great difficulty. So that's part of the story. That's part of your story. And the idea is don't be the victim in your story. Don't be the person who says, poor me, because no one wants to follow that. If you are a leader, you have to recognize your past story. You have to be accountable for your present story. Then what's wonderful is you need to create your future story. And your future story is what I call your vision. All right. And what is wonderful is that when I'm working with people coaching, we talk a lot about your strengths. And what's so sad is that most people don't even know their strengths. If I ask people to list out their top 5 strengths, so many people have so many problems doing that. That's such a bummer. That's really sad. You should know what makes you special. All right. Part of your present story. And it creates your future story. How special you are, what your strengths are what you will use as the tools for your future story. And it is so sad how the people I work with so commonly have an imposter syndrome for their present story that impacts their future story. They think, I'm really not good enough. I've been faking it a long time. No one's been able to see it. Well, guess what? Everyone does. Everyone fakes it. Everyone has self-doubt. All right? The key is, are these outdated narratives for how you should be seeing yourself? Because realistically, it is so funny to me. I'll have people who are fairly high-level executives who will say, you know what? I have imposter syndrome. And I, to an extent, I can't believe that I'm in the position that I'm in. I can't believe that I oversee hundreds of people or thousands of people, And what I remind them is that maybe you've been telling yourself a lie. Maybe this idea of your self-doubt, is wrong, because if I show you the proof of your life and how much you've done, how much you've accomplished, how much other people look up to you. Maybe it's not imposter syndrome. Maybe it's true that what other people think of you is actually what you are. And maybe you're the one who is believing a lie. And what's great is that if you are willing to do the work, right? If you're willing to talk with a person, a leadership coach, a therapist, which is great to do, and look at your own thoughts, your own beliefs, your own narrative, you're going to start to see the truth and the lies. And the more that you can see the truth for what it is and believe in your own truth, and the more that you can start to see the lies and start, negating them in your life, the happier you will be, the more successful you will be. What I think is great is that there's good news. All right? You can rewrite the script of your story. And this is a really big deal. There's been some great research that by a psychologist who, at the moment, I can't think of his name, but he did a bunch of research on happiness. And what he showed is that the happiest people were not people who lived the easiest lives. It's a really big deal. So their present story and their future story wasn't about, oh gosh, things were so great in my past. Right? Their present story and future story was about, you know what? I had a rough past, but I learned so much from it. And my past story, it was hard, it was really challenging, but I learned so much from it. I grew so much from it. I am the person who I am today because of my past story. And that is the epitome of the hero's journey. That's the epitome of the hero's story. The more that we can all see our past story, our present story, and our future story, the happier that we will be. And what I think is neat, this is a significant statement. When you create a new story, you create new results, right? When you create a new story, you create new results, right? When your inner narrative shifts, everything else starts to change as well. So the focus is, are you going to take the time to look at your past? All right? The challenge is, are you willing to take the time and energy to really dive into how you are, why you are, who you are now? All right? And if you're willing to take a look at the past and really see your past story and recognize the challenges that you had, the negative that happened in your life, and rewrite the story and not have it be a victim story, but have it be a story where you recognize the truth of who you are today and recognize, wow, you know what? I went through heck and I came out on the other side. And what I think is wonderful is that the more that each of us can use our past story as the reason why we are happy today, not the reason why we are sad today, right? Not the reason why we are less than today. But we use our past and say, look what I've overcome. You create a present story and then a future story that is impressive, that is inspiring. And when I read the story of your life, I want to be inspired by it. I want to see that you were the hero of your life. All right. I want to see that you were never the victim, that you went through hard times and you went through darkness and sadness and grief and everyone goes through poor me at times. All right. That's okay. But as long as those times aren't very long, as long as they're short, we're okay. Make sure that when you look at the story of your life, you recognize, you remember, every day is a page. And you are writing the story of your life each day. If I read the story of your life, will I be inspired? If I read the story of your life, will I think, God, that was a great story. And holy cow, this guy, he went through the hero's journey. He went through those tough times, and look at him now. Look at her now. That's someone who I want to follow. So if you ever want any help with coaching, I do one-on-one coaching, leadership coaching as a group, as well as a 6-session leadership program. I would love to work with you. Just take a look at my website and then let me know how I can help. Take care.